Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are listening. Welcome back to The Truth About Us, the podcast from Unstoppable Life. And I am your host, Don Crampert. So, if you are a first time listener, I am so glad that you discovered our conversation and welcome. If you are a returning listener, thank you for showing back up and welcome back to the conversation and the discussion. See, it all starts right here, where we have honest conversations about the internal battles and overwhelm that many of us men face but rarely want to admit or even talk about it with anyone or even out loud. See, we uncover the quiet questions about identity and purpose and direction and emotions, and we explore what it really means to overcome these quiet struggles and identify the turning points and navigate the next chapters that shape our life, especially during the phases where we feel really lost, we're not sure where to begin or even how to regain our confidence, and the old version of ourselves no longer quite fits into our life. So we're continuing with this series that I call The Next Chapter. And I will begin today's conversation like I have in the past few weeks with another quality question. And I'm pointing this out because we often are unaware of how important and what we ask ourselves. It's very important, and it's that we ask quality questions in lieu of just general or casual ones. See, the quality of our lives is highly influenced by the quality of questions we ask. So, here it is. Have you ever looked around at your life and feel like you've been disconnected from something, but you can't quite explain it? You can't explain why? It's not because everything is falling around and falling apart, and it's not because there is some major crisis going on, but because something just feels different. Something feels off, and we can't quite place our finger on it. Yet, deep down, we feel and we know things don't feel the way they used to. See, for me, and I think for many men, we experience this at some point in our lives. And it's because it's difficult to explain, so we often assume something must be wrong. See, we tell ourselves, and I told myself this, I should be grateful. I shouldn't feel this way. Nothing is wrong. But what if that discomfort that we're feeling isn't a problem to solve? What if it's just a signal? Just a signal that we've changed, a signal that we've grown. It's a signal that maybe the parts of our life no longer fit to who we're becoming. That's what we're going to talk about today. The invisible transition of one of the things I've noticed in my life that doesn't always announce it when the chapter is ending. Right? There's no ceremony. There's no warning. There's no clear sign that just shows up. And often, change happens gradually. We begin seeing things differently and priorities shift, and the conversations that once energized us kind of no longer do. Is that familiar? Goals that once motivated us to they lose their appeal, and that version of success that we've spent years pursuing starts to feel incomplete. And because these changes happen slowly, they can leave us feeling confused. And we could start looking around and think, why doesn't this feel right anymore? See, the answer may be simpler than you think here, because the life that we're living was built on a version of us that no longer exists. The person you were, right? The person you were, think about this. We spend years reconnecting with a previous or trying to reconnect a version of ourselves. It's a younger version. We feel maybe even a stronger version, a more confident version. The version before a disappointment or the disappointments, before the setbacks, before life got complicated. I've certainly done all of that, and maybe you have too, but here's what I've come to realize. The goal isn't to become who you used to be. The goal is to understand who we are becoming now. Because every experience changes us, my friends. Every success we've had, every failure or setback, every relationship, every challenge, every lesson, every win and loss, life shapes us whether we realize it or not. And at some point, we have to stop comparing ourselves to the past and start getting curious about the present, about the now. See, the fear of letting go is a reason. The reason is transition feels so uncomfortable because letting go is difficult. Even when we're holding on to what no longer fits, we hold on to identities and roles and expectations and stories about who we were and stories about what our lives are supposed to look like. And sometimes we continue carrying those stories long after those stories have stopped serving us. Why? Because uncertainty is uncomfortable. The familiar feels really safe, doesn't it? Even when it no longer feels aligned. Familiarity, it feels safe. See, this is why many of us, people, men, women, we get stuck and we stay stuck. And it's not because we lack courage. It's because we're afraid of releasing something before we know what comes next. See, but growth rarely works that way, my friends. We often have to let go before we can see anything ahead of us. Growth doesn't always feel good. Growth doesn't always feel good. One of the biggest misconceptions about growth is that it's supposed to feel exciting all the time. It doesn't. Sometimes growth feels like confusion. Sometimes growth feels like a loss. Sometimes growth feels like loneliness. Sometimes growth feels like uncertainty, and sometimes growth feels like standing between two versions of ourselves. The person you used to be and the person you're becoming. That space right there can be very uncomfortable. But it can also be incredibly powerful because it's where transformation happens. So we have to ask ourselves a different question. See, many of us ask, how do I get back to who I was? And I think there's a way better question than that. How about, who am I becoming? That question shifts everything because now we're not trying to recreate a past. We're creating a future. We're not trying to reclaim an old identity. We're discovering a new one. We're not focused on what we've lost. We're focused on what we're learning, and that's where possibility and opportunities begin. So some final thoughts here. If you've been feeling restless lately and parts of your life no longer seem to fit, and if you've been questioning who you are or where you're headed, don't assume you're lost because you don't have the answer. Don't assume that you're broken. Don't assume that you're failing. You're simply changing. You're standing between chapters. And life is asking you to release what no longer fits so you can make room for what comes next, because the next chapter of your life isn't waiting for the person you used to be. It's waiting for the person you're becoming. Thank you for joining me on this episode of The Truth About Us. If today's conversation had an impact and it resonated with you, be sure to subscribe to my Unstoppable Life Reset Letter on Substack. There, each issue, I explore these topics more deeply through reflection and application and action. Until next time, keep showing up, keep having honest and truthful conversations, continue to ask quality questions, and stop holding on to what no longer serves you. Your unlimited growth potential depends on it. And this is the truth about us.